Question. What's your creepiest real-life story? Reddit Story 1. When I was little, around 8, I hated going to the dentist. He always made me uncomfortable for some reason. I remember thinking his smile stretched too far and seemed forced, like clowns. Anyway, my mom always came with me, and went back so I wouldn't be scared. One day, my dad had me, divorced parents, and had to take me to the dentist, but tried to make me go back alone so he could sit out in the lobby doing whatever. The assistants had to literally drag me back to the room, and you could hear me screaming and crying down the hall, refusing to sit in the chair. Finally, my dad came back to get me. Irritated I'd made a scene, he rescheduled my appointment to when my mom would have me, and we just left. He made a big deal about how bad I was acting and told my mom she was spoiling me and all sorts of shit. 2 weeks later, it's on the news that my dentist was charged with child pornography, after molesting children under anesthesia and photographing it. Reddit Story 2. I lived in a small college town and my apartment complex was walking distance from the bar, downtown area. One weekday night, I stepped out on our front porch to smoke a cigarette or two. I was up late studying. I brought my textbook with me and sat down on the stairs while I smoked. A girl, who I had never met but who lived one apartment over but down on the ground floor, came home from downtown. She was by herself and you could tell from her walk she had been drinking. She got in her apartment and barely got the door closed before some guy, who came out of nowhere, knocked on her door. She opened and I noticed he introduced himself, which was weird because it was after 2:30 a.m. Who comes to a strange girl's apartment at that time? So I decide to stay outside and pay attention. They ended up talking for over 10 minutes. She later acknowledged how weird the situation was but did not know how to end the conversation. He would do the creepiest things, like he reached up and strokes her hair at least 3 times, and would try and slowly inch his way closer to her and the door. I made a point of being loud with my textbook so he would know I was there, and he disappeared as eerily as he had come. We called the cops, and days later they had the girl and me sit with a sketch artist. As soon as the sketch was made public, floods of calls came in. Guy turned out to be a serial rapist who followed lone girls home from bars and pretended to be a cab offering them a ride. This girl just got lucky because she lived so close to the bars, he didn't get a chance to pull the cab routine. TLDR, creepy person followed a neighbor home, probably only left because there was a witness, serial rapist apprehended. Reddit Story 3. Working as a paramedic, I was dispatched to what went out as a simple assault call in a bad neighborhood. This was around 10 p.m. We arrived at the address to find a man standing behind a row of parallel parked cars in front of his house, yelling in a strange high-pitched voice. The police were trying to calm him down. Our first assumption walking up to him was that this was the guy who was injured, but once we got the gurney around the parked cars we saw what was really going on. A dead man was leaned up against a Mini Cooper, submerged in the gutter. I'll never forget coming around the car to find him. There was this really unsettling moment that lasted about 2 seconds where I thought he was alive and staring at me, then realizing he was looking through me, then realizing he was dead. He was shirtless and had been stabbed multiple times. And these were brutal wounds. Most stabbings I'd seen up till that point seemed to be simple penetrations, but this guy's chest and abdomen had been torn to shreds. It was nasty. The guy standing on the curb was yelling in that weird warbly voice, crying, asking if his roommate would be okay. We started CPR and scooped him up and took him to the hospital, knowing that there really was no chance for this guy. After the doctor pronounced him, a couple of cops came over from the scene to square away business involving the victim. One of them really dropped a bomb on us. The story they had heard before our arrival was that the victim had left the house to have a smoke, and when his roommate came out to check on him, he found him stabbed to death outside. But after we left for the hospital, someone noticed a trail of blood leading from the house to the curb, implying that he had been stabbed inside. When the police confronted the roommate about this, he managed to run inside and barricade himself in-house. There was actually a SWAT team over there dealing with the situation as we spoke. So anyway, the person who had most likely brutally murdered our patient that night had been standing there right behind me for most of the call. Pretty creepy. Reddit Story 4. Me and my friends explored an abandoned house recently that seemed to be abandoned in a similar way. We entered through the garage, which still stored a family's items. Some items I remember are a nice fishing boat with a cover on it, a snow blower, the metal cage things people around here put around plants to stop animals from eating them. And there was an old straight-six engine in the corner with the head taken off. One wall of the garage looked to have collapsed in. At the back of the garage was a tiny room with a workbench where the head of the engine from the garage sat with the valve train half taken apart. Just beside the tiny workroom was the stairs to the first floor. Everything was covered in a 1/2-inch thick layer of black rottenness. All the items were still in the house, but many of the shelves had fallen over, and many things broken. The only real creepy thing was a teddy bear face down on the ground, with its back somehow absent of the layer of black rotten. My friend then put his foot through the floor, so we got out of there. I bet the top floor was more interesting, but the floors were very rotten. Reddit Story 5. When I was 12 or 13, we went to a McDonald's on the way to the beach. I went to pee before I ate and to wash my hands. Just as I started peeing, this guy comes in, walks to the urinal next to me and just watches. Doesn't pee. Just watches. I can see him out of the corner of my eye, his eyes locked onto my junk, what there was of it. I had a bathing suit on, so I'm doing the whole junk flop over thing. Guys know what that means, so I can't hide it. I can't stop it. I can now though. Not sure why when you're a kid you can't stop your pee. He just smiled creepily as I finished, put things away and washed my hands. He just stood there smiling. I gave him one more look as I left the bathroom and never saw him again. I was with my friend's mom and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to get in trouble and really wanted to go to the beach. That logic makes no sense, I realize that now, but I ate my filet-o-fish with a WTF look on my face and had an awesome day at the beach. Look on my face and had an awesome day at the beach. Reddit Story 6. About 6 years ago, I was in my final year of high school, and due to the weird timetable that 12th grade had at my school, we regularly had 2+hour breaks between classes, early finishes, and longer lunch breaks. My house was about a 20-minute walk away from school, and I would usually just walk home either by myself or with a friend and chill until we had to head back. My school was located on the outskirts of the city, and my house a little bit further out. I lived on about 40 acres on a dirt road. Along the dirt road, I had been passing a really foul smell about 5 minutes away from my house. I couldn't tell where the smell was coming from, but it was definitely close to the road. I had passed this smell about 4 times over roughly a week of school but figured it was a dead animal due to the area. After an exam, I was walking home with a friend and the smell was worse than ever, so as you do, we decided to walk into the grass to search for whatever the smell was. We ended up finding a black garbage bag that was completely blown up like a balloon about 5 meters from the road. As a joke, I threw a rock at it and it popped and shot out this foul white goo, and immediately, my friend and I started dry reaching. We ran away as fast as we could, laughing and vomiting, back home to my place. I didn't think anything of it as I figured it was a cat or something that someone had dumped. I remember walking back from school the next week, by myself, and there were mounted police on their horses walking down the road slowly, and near one of the entrances to my property, there was a dog squad with sniffer dogs walking around. I didn't take much notice of all the police and what they were doing, but literally as soon as I got closer to the area that we had found the bag, I had a sinking feeling in my stomach and I thought, oh shit. The bag ended up being the body of a girl who had been murdered and was dumped along the fence line of my property. I still feel sick when I think about it. TLDR, threw a rock at a garbage bag which happened to have a rotting corpse in it.